90s hit, and it was like, don't get that guy, he's a shredder. Like, you don't want to have him play for that band. Like, I learned the Rockin' America solo from him when I was 14. He's like, well, you want to get up and jam? And I was like, you me? It changed the trajectory of my whole pack, dude. Nuno texted me, hey, you free, you want to call you? It was the weirdest call ever to get. I want to ask you to do this gig with me. And I'm like, this is amazing. I'm going to get to, play with Nuno. Kip Winger said I had the worst name in rock.
This is so heavy. What was Guitar World thinking? I'm probably gonna get blacklisted just by covering this issue. Hey everybody, it's Derek over at Masters of Shred, and I want to welcome you to a very new, very special episode of Pages in Time. Now, if you don't do also already, make sure you hit the subscribe button, shred the notification bell, like this video, drop a comment, let us know you care, because we're gonna bring you a lot more awesome episodes of Pages in Time like this one right now. Now, the guest we have here today, he is no stranger to the platform. We have done master classes with this Shred Master Supreme. We've done tons of videos on the platform with this guy, and we've also hosted shred contests with him. It goes on and on. I'm talking about none other than the professor of shred that you have seen with Cher. You have seen him with Rock of Ages. You've seen him with Whitesnake, and I saw him for the first time with Night Ranger, literally almost maybe 10 years ago. I can't remember. I think it was 10 years ago, 2013 or so. Yeah, just about. Give it up for the mighty Joel Hoekstra.
Oh, gosh, man. Thank you, brother.
Good introduction.
What a nice intro. I'm not worthy of that.
Well, I feel like I forgot another band that you're in right now, too.
Siberian Orchestra.
This band over here, right?
This little outfit, right?
Yeah, which is where we're at right now. We're in Nashville, Bridgestone Arena, so thank you for having us come out to do this. It is a mobile episode of Pages in Time. So it's going to be pretty explosive, and we're going to hop right in. We got you for about an hour. It's going to be crazy, and you guys know how this works. We're going to review an old vintage guitar magazine. Anything comes to mind, stories about gear, artists, times, things going on, feel free to throw in your 2 cents, all right?
Absolutely.
So we're going to go back to 1993, folks, okay? So let's just sum up that year so you understand what was going on pop culture-wise. Okay, so for starters, Jurassic Park was roaring to life with some of the most intense special effects any movie has ever seen before, and it did so in the box office. We saw Michael Jordan retire, that's right, but then come back about a year or 2 years later and took 3 championships home with the Bulls. That's pretty big for you too, because you're a basketball guy.
It is.
We know about that as well. And X-Files went on a quest for the truth. Just to give you a little idea. And something else we know is that the gray skies of Seattle dominated the airwaves, and the rumor was that shred was dead. Well, that's what we're going to go into, because today's issue is the November 1993 issue of Guitar World. Front cover, Joe Satriani, Shred and Dead, and it is the ultimate clickbait before there was social media. And you guys are going to see why. So let's just hop right in. So what's really cool about this issue is, as I told you a little bit before we got started, here it is, Joe Satriani on the front, Is Shred Dead? We know that this year Nirvana put out their 3rd album, last album, In Utero? In Utero, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Not a name people want to remember if you're part of the shred scene, okay? But the coolest thing about this is, look at that. Shred is not dead. So this was, folks, clickbait before clickbait. And it was on newsstands everywhere. Pretty witty the way Guitar World did this. But we got Blind Melon here, Nirvana Harp-Shaped Box, Pantera Cemetery Gate Secure, Just Like Heaven, all that good stuff. We actually talked about this too. You ever heard of Art?
I have, yeah.
You ever play their stuff?
I have not, no, but I'm familiar with the name, oh my gosh.
Right, you see their gear today, it doesn't go for much. I feel like they never really took off, but I always like the look of them. Remind me like the ADA kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So hopping right in, we got some Fender acoustics, some Slash ads. Look like it'd be an ad today.
Yeah.
Honestly, nothing really time changing, but here we go. Now we're gonna get into table of contents. John Petrucci, hot off the press here.
Yeah.
Talk about his deal with Ibanez, RG Guitars, and you can win a private lesson with John Petrucci and a one-of-a-kind Ibanez custom guitar. I always wonder whoever won these things. You know?
Yeah.
Like, did they go out to meet them, or have you ever had an encounter with John Petrucci?
Yeah, it took me forever to meet him. He was like one of those people that you just go, what? It's crazy that I've never crossed paths with him. And then one morning, sure enough, I was going out to Vegas, I believe it was, and there he was at the gate. And so he was going out, I believe, to receive an award of some guy, like a Billboard award, I think, or something. It was a big deal. And I forget what I was going out to do, but it wasn't as cool as what he was going to do. But we were getting on the, I saw him at the gate, and I thought, should I say hello? I thought, say hello, come on, man, you know. So introduced myself, and he couldn't have been nicer. He was a super nice guy. And then what was really funny was we get on the plane and we go to board, and I hear from behind me, I kind of vaguely see a woman sitting in first class, like as we're getting on, and I hear Joel, like from the female voice. I turn around and it was Debbie Gibson, who I had spent time with on the set of the movie Rock of Ages. So it was a very bizarre, like, triangle of, like, you know, musicians on this plane with, you know, John Petrucci, myself, and then Debbie Gibson. And,
wow.
But she's so cool and so nice. And not only did I get to know her on the set of the movie Rock of Ages and get to hang with her a little bit, but when she did Celebrity Apprentice, she had me down to like hang at her episode on one of her episodes and play with her, play acoustic with her hit. And,
no way. No.
And then in that episode, 𝙋𝘼𝙂𝙀𝙎 𝙄𝙉 came down, and he like came and jammed too. And I thought, man, I'm gonna be all over this episode of Celebrity Apprentice, right? Like she had me down. I played with her. We played for. And I made a donation, and I thought, I'm going to just be all over. So I told my whole family, oh, you're not going to believe it. And they used, like, and 𝙋𝘼𝙂 had said, he heard me playing, he said, you know, jam with me. So I ended up jamming with 𝙋𝘼𝙂 too. So that's really where I was like, man, I'm for sure. Like,
yeah,
I was on screen for like, it was not even 1 second. It was like 0.75 seconds. That showed me how heavily they edit those reality shows.
Isn't that terrible?
So I was like, womp, major womp.
Reality TV.
My whole family, I had bragged, like, I played with 𝙋𝘼𝙂, I played with Debbie Gibson, I'm going to be on Celebrity Apprentice, and it was nothing. Yeah.
And what year was that?
Gosh, Rock of Ages was happening. I want to say like maybe, I'm going to estimate 2010.
2010?
Yeah.
Right? I remember that movie came out because I was living in South Florida at the time, and it was huge because they turned the Revolution Club downtown
so yeah, it must be later. If the movie happened, because yeah, the movie happened later into the run. So probably, a couple of years later, 2012.
Around there? Wow. Reality TV.
Anyway.
There's no reality in reality TV, it doesn't seem. Also, the Rockman was still killing it in the 90s.
Look at that.
People still talk about it today, you know?
I had a Rockman.
Yeah, ask Phil Collins, Def Leppard, what amp he used for the Adrenalize album. So cool, and they're still popular, and they got some PV stuff here, which they're all heavy in the ads. Some of the brands I'd never seen before, honestly, like this kind of stuff.
Nope.
The new pick,
Nope.
But there was a lot of enthusiasm at the time. So you have new brands coming out. I like this. They go into the woodshed kind of talk, wood shred, talking about is shred dead? And you hear just the tone is not good. They refer to guitar player, guitar for the practicing musician, and how much everyone's downing the term shredder. And they even asked Joe Satriani, he said, the way I look at it, if you really play your guitar with attitude, then you're a shredder. That's what makes a shredder. So B.B. King's a shredder, he said. Would you agree with that?
I mean, that word can mean different things to different people. I mean, it's like, it's slang, right? So initially it was derogatory, 100%. I mean,
did it start out or did it become that way in the early 90s?
It was derogatory out of the gate. Like as soon as like that term was a thing, like there was no usage of that in the 80s. Like when you were, so like when I was at GIT, but just before Smells Like Teen Spirit had come out and whatnot, like nobody was saying the word shred. Like that guy shreds. That was not
really?
A thing. No, it was like when the 90s hit, and it was like, don't get that guy. He's a shredder. Like you don't want to have him play for that band. And so it was derogatory, 100%.
Wow. So
yeah.
It came out of that. It was never even thrown around in the
which
80s.
is the wildest thing that nowadays there's sites like yours where it's like a positive thing, and it's like, it's done a total 180.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. It's and in this issue you'll see it almost seems like he's, trying to defend his character, Joe Satriani, in this of being a real show and coach shredder. Now, this is what I love, the sounding board, which was basically a board for trolls before social media.
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh, the things they send in this thing are absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
This whole thing about Ted Nugent, there's a lot of stories about. It's crazy what people were saying. Same with this stuff. Steve I columns, they don't want to see a whole bunch more of his stuff on the next issue, and just. I mean, this is what people had to rely on. They had to go send all their hate mail in and hopefully it got published. But today, you can just put that shit out in just a second's notice. It's good.
Yeah.
Just throw it out there. You're all good. Back then, it was picky.
Happening right here.
I know, right?
At your fingertips.
Good Lord. We got some more ads here, some more hate stuff. You know who this one is too? This is Bogner, the Bogner. Reinhold Bogner actually sent in a letter.
Wow.
I'd like to thank George Lynch for his kind comments about my amplifier. I have a couple more corrections though. My name is Reinhold, right? Reinhold, not Lionel. I'm 8 feet tall, not 7. Sometimes I wear Speedos. While it's true the prototypes are not for sale, but you can purchase a superior production model. That's pretty cool, and he actually wrote that in and put his address.
That's hilarious.
That's pretty awesome,
great
right?
sense of humor.
Right, exactly. A little bit of Aerosmith love in here too. And we're killing it as well, reinventing themselves with those crazy music videos that were like movies with movie stars in them.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, where'd that go? Well, where the hell do music videos go in general?
Yeah.
They're not.
I mean, I liked that era of Aerosmith.
Right?
You know, it's not that cool to say that. You're supposed to, oh, man, I like the early stuff.
I know.
I liked the
that was great,
well-written
dude.
tunes.
Right?
I mean, you know.
It was awesome. They all told stories. These great, epic, things.
I mean, Steven Tyler, man, he could just deliver anything and just turn it into something that was otherworldly, man. You know,
and to think they came out of that decade and fame, like, listen, they were always legendary band, but when they hit the 90s to reinvent themselves like they did, not a lot of bands could do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
AC/DC could keep it going.
Yeah.
Throughout the 80s, throughout the 90s, that never.
Yeah.
But very few, and I think Bon Jovi was another one that got out of the 80s and survived well in the 90s.
Yeah.
You know?
It's My Life, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't that the one?
That was 2000 though.
That was 2000. What was
Crush? Always was there.
Oh,
the song
okay, all right,
Always.
yeah,
They still had the power ballads,
Yeah.
but they were fucking so appealing to everybody.
Okay.
You know? Yeah, that was earlier on. Rush stuff, they put out their album during that time, Counterparts.
Yeah,
So that was,
I loved Counterparts. I had that cassette. That might have been the end of me following Rush, though, but I was a huge Rush fan. I mean, I'm not a big guy naming favorites, but if I had to name, like, probably throughout the time, just because of, like, how many sounds they went through and how many of their cassettes I owned, let's be real. It wasn't, like, albums for me or, CDs. Getting through that era was cassettes, but, like, I had a lot of Rush cassettes that I would obsess on, like certain ones, like Hemispheres. I listened to that, like, 10 million times, and, obviously Moving Pictures, and that was like, but a lot of the stuff like Presto, when they went back to the guitar sound, like coming out of the synthy era, like I really liked that record. Presto and Roll the Bones, I wore those out. And that was right around this time. Like Counterparts was not long after Roll the Bones. Like that was, maybe 2 years before.
Wow. So you're a big Rush fan. Did you ever get into Yes?
Yeah, I
Trevor Rabin?
love the Trevor Rabin era. Yes,
thank
dude.
you, dude.
I'm a Trevor Rabin dork.
Dude.
I love him. I think he's amazing. I on several counts. I mean, I think he's a brilliant guitar player, but I love his voice. He's like my favorite singer. Like I listen to his voice, and I'm like, it's like David Gilmour. You're like, well, that's just unfair. You sing so well.
All around, dude. All around. Great composer.
Like, yeah. So he, in a lot of ways, sounds Gilmour influenced.
Yeah.
Like, maybe a little more proggy and.
Yes.
But I just love his creativity in the studio with sounds.
And then when all the movies, you could hear him in Bad Boys. The first one.
Can't Look Away. His solo record is one of my favorite albums of all time. That is like one that I just listen to over and over and over and over because the versatility. There's so much on there. Like the songwriting is just brilliant. And
now I think that was the album where Eddie asked him if he could take his riff.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was. Eddie had that song on Balance, I believe it was. Was it called �モ 𝙬𝙉? You know what I'm talking about? It was the instrumental song for Van Halen, where he was playing all instrumentals. I think I was going to vibrate. But he's playing all. I know it's terrible. It was an instrumental, and Eddie Van Halen played it. I'm gonna put it in right here. But yes, Eddie called him because actually Trevor Rabin's riff, and he asked him if he could use it. He liked it so much.
Nice.
And dude, you go to him, you can hear it. It's like, oh, that's totally the riff he used. But yeah, I love that band, dude. You see this? We got Fight.
Fight, dude.
And who's that?
Russ Parrish.
Russ Parrish.
Satchel.
Yep, there you go. Satchel, for those that don't know.
Russ was a teacher at GIT when I went, and he had his open counseling, and you could sit in with these, those that haven't been inside GIT, the open counseling was basically you go in the room and they would jam with each student. You pass the cable around and you'd have a little extendo jam where you'd find a riff and I went to Russ's like all the time. I
Really?
was in Russ's all the time, and he was amazing. He was killer, and he was young. I mean, he was just like a kid, and he is an amazing player. Russ is like a killer rock player. I mean, underappreciated because of the campiness of. Wait, what was that?
Steel Panther?
Steel Panther, thank God. Thank God, you bailed me out. Sorry, man, I've been maybe nervous for an interview here or something.
No,
but,
it's all good.
But no, when I saw him, I don't think he knew who I was, but I was now in Whitesnake, and we were on a bill, or maybe I think it was a night off in like Switzerland, and I went to go see Steel Panther and Dead Daisies. That's what it was. So I went to go, see the Dead Daisies guys, are all friends, and anyway, I saw Russ backstage and sort of like introduced myself, and I think he was a little like, is this guy just like a fan? And
really?
But I was like, dude, it's like I look a lot different. Like I had short hair kind of back then, and. But anyway, he's ended up being really cool, like and supportive. Like he's seen me play at some festivals with Whitesnake, and I'll get a really nice text from Russ being like, you killed it, and
wow.
I got a lot of respect from him. He's a hell of a guitar player.
Dude, that's really cool. He was in a band with Paul Gilbert at that school too. It's not he didn't even play bass.
Yeah, I believe he and Paul were like, well, they had that side project band together, right?
Electric something.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe were roommates for a period of time.
Yeah.
Like so, I mean, he was like, he was, had big shoes that like were happening like right there for him as like his best friend was Paul Gilbert or whatever. So. Yeah, crazy. But Russ is an amazing guitar player. He's really, really great.
How do you pay tribute to one of the greatest guitarists from one of the greatest rock bands of all time?
Tone Arts USA proudly brings to you the ultimate addition to your shred den, the limited edition Super Halen 1x12 stack.
Draped in the pages of a vintage 1990 Van Halen comic book, the Super Halen is a showpiece that can rock like no other.
Handcrafted by Tone Arts master luthier Sam Hill, no two Super Halen amps are the same.
Each cabinet is scientifically crafted with the highest grade materials to give you that monstrous tone that will light up the sky. It's fully loaded with a 12-inch USA-made Green Beret speaker, a total upgrade from the Celestion G12M greenbacks that we've become so accustomed to.
Each cabinet is closed back just like Eddie's, but Tone Arts USA does offer an optional open back if your heart desires.
Visit www.mastersofshred.com now to reserve yours today before you can't get this stuff no more.
Wow. And we're going to probably go a little bit faster too. But some more articles and stuff like here. Again, anything pops out that strikes a chord with you.
Gary, I see all the time at Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp. Gary is, one of the counselors on a regular basis there, and so we've had the opportunity to jam together a couple times. Super nice guy, amazing player, and he's always been really, really great to me.
Wow, very cool. Rivera, gotta love Rivera amps.
Yep.
I see a lot of those. This kind of threw me for a loop here. The anti-heroes. We're talking about Blind Melon's Christopher Thorne and Roger Stevens. Okay, I like Blind Melon a lot. I like their music. I like what they do. I respect what they do, what they did. This article throws me for a loop mentally because literally right out of the gate, they just bash shred. It's kind of hard to watch, but I'm going to go into it right now. So the first thing he says is, who's going to be on the cover? That's what Christopher Thorne said. If he's going to appear in Guitar World, he naturally is curious about his issue. I hope it's not somebody like that 𝙃𝘗, what is his name? 𝙃𝘗, and they're trying to figure out what it is. What do you mean by 𝙃𝘗? You mean Nuno? Ah, yeah, that's the guy. I'd be embarrassed if it was someone like that on the front cover of a magazine he was in. Folks, this is the time, okay? Today, we look at this and go, that's crazy, that's absurd to ever say that, but back then, you really were hated if you were a shredder. And to me, Nuno was more than that. With the funk, the groove, the rhythm playing, the songwriting, and you're gonna go bash that. I always tell people, that's one castle you can't afford to throw stones at. And that's just absurd to me that they would even drop that comment.
Yeah, I mean, Extreme are phenomenal musicians and phenomenal guys. I mean, Nuno just came to a TSO show not all that
I saw that
far
picture,
back.
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, he couldn't have been cooler and more gracious, and he's always been a good friend to me, and same type of deal as like Russ. Like, I'm always very honored to be included in this circle because, these guys have, especially Nuno, been a part of breaking a band from the beginning. I never have had that privilege. I've been the guy to come into things. And so, I'm always honored to be included in that circle with guys like that. I have a lot of respect for that. It takes it's hard to do that and to break Extreme and build it into what they've done with that. And, he's an amazing musician. And he had me jam with him on the cruise, on the Monsters of Rock cruise, I believe.
Oh, I recorded it. I was there.
And so that was with Gabriella, who sings out here now with TSO, and that was the weirdest call ever to get because it was like Nuno texting me, "Hey, you free? You want to call you?" And he was like, I ask you to do this gig with me," and I'm like, "This is amazing. I'm gonna get to play with Nuno, like killer." And then he was like, "But I'm gonna be playing cajon."
Okay.
Yeah. And he goes, "But I need a guitar player that can play, and I know you can play, man." And I'm like, "Well, I'm honored that you're calling me. Kind of bummed that we're not going to get to play guitar together, but like awesome still, like
right.
And so there was like this really bizarre moment where we were supposed to rehearse in his cabin for this the night before and day before, and the cajon was up in production, and so I ended up I was like wheeling it down a hallway of the ship, going to Nuno's room to like rehearse with him, nervous too, to like play in front of Nuno and play the shit and like, so. And it was just a very funny, surreal moment where the moment you're pushing a cajon down the hallway of like a cruise ship going to like, it's almost like life is stranger than fiction, right?
Yeah, dude. Okay, you know what? I think about it. I don't think I got that video. I got the video of you and Joe Satriani on the cruise when he called you out for the G3 Jam. I didn't get that one.
Yeah, and that was amazing. So Joe actually, luck would have it, my tech out here, Galen Henson, was Joe's tech for a long period of time and also his onstage guitarist. And so we formed a bit of a relationship through me starting to use a JS1 and having a mutual, like using the Chrome Boy out here on the tour, and then having Galen as a mutual friend. So there was like a couple times, I had heard back from Joe on IG inboxes and things like that, and I knew he was going to be on the cruise, and I thought, I'm just going to drop him a message. I'm sure it's annoying because everybody on the cruise is always like, "Hey, let's get to," but there was like one time I was going to have the balls because I really admired Joe from like the very beginning. Not of This Earth I had on vinyl and wore Not of This Earth out like before he took off.
Yeah.
And went to go see him as a kid when Surfin' first came out. And anyway, too long a story, but he hit me back with, I was like, maybe like to, be just great to be able to say hello or like have coffee or something. But then he was like, "Well, you want to get up and jam?" And I was like, "You fucking kidding me?" It changed the trajectory of my whole pack, dude, because I go with an acoustic on the cruise. I do an acoustic set, and I was like, "How do I get an electric down there?" And because I was like, I'm paranoid if I get there, I'm gonna get some guitar. I wanted my gold top. I was like, I want to be like at home as much as possible.
Right.
It's enough to go like, hey, I'm plugging into a rental amp and I have to jam with Joe Satriani. And but that was a dream come true for me. As cheesy as that
Were you
sounds
playing
to me.
Les Paul that night? You were, right?
Yeah, I was playing my gold top. That's like my main. So I put that in a flight case for the trip. I was like, okay, I'm gonna just do like check this.
Yeah.
Have the carry-on acoustic.
Right. When you have a moment like that, you gotta bring your own shit. Because you play someone else's, it's gonna be tough. Right?
I kind of got a little. At first, I was like, yeah, I'll just play a JS1. Like if you have a guitar for me. But then I thought, you know what, like. We're significantly different heights, and I thought the guitar's probably gonna be like here on me. I'm gonna get in one of these situations where I'm going like, oh crap,
Right.
So I just wanted to feel at home. Brought the Les Paul, and actually at that time I was shedding the Accept set because I sat in with them last year. So it actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Like I was like, and I believe was maybe even going into a rock camp. So I had like all this stuff to be practicing.
Wow.
And I was like, it actually would be nice to if I just bite the bullet and check my gold top and pray that it gets there in one piece.
God.
So I was in my cabin and I had an electric to
It's
practice
stressful
on.
when you got to do that stuff. We had to go drive to the Monsters of Rock cruise because the guitar I brought was the Radhawk for Justin Hawkins to play. It's a reverse headstock Explorer with a reverse banana. So you know what case fits that? None.
None.
I had to bring my Pelican rifle case.
Yeah.
And I gotta get that on a plane. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
So we drove all the way down from Nashville to, was it Orlando at the time we were going out? Or was that at Miami?
Probably Miami, yeah.
Dude, lugging
All the
that
way
thing
down,
around.
yeah.
You know what's funny? I sent Justin a picture. I have a little Steinberger travel version. And I said, hey man, you want to play this guitar on the cruise? That's all I sent him. But in the background, the distance, you could see the Radhawk Explorer on a stand. You know what he responds with? I'd love to, but what's the one behind it? Could I play that one instead? I'm like, oh my gosh, dude. How the hell am I going to get it there? So, are you serious?
Yeah.
Like, I really want to. I'm like, oh fuck. Gotta do it. So we went out there.
Hey, man.
Love the Soldano ads they had back then too. What is this? Hot rodded right out of the box.
Yep.
You got the amps as a part of the motor. That's pretty wild for stuff. And you got this.
And then there's the amazing Paul Gilbert.
Using a Fernades
And
sustainer.
that's another guy who I had. It took me forever to meet Paul. I
Really?
just met Paul, like, because when I did fill in with Accept this year, we did South America, and there we were in Santiago, Chile, like checking into the hotel, and Mr. Big is checking out.
Oh,
And I'm like, so I have
okay.
Eric Martin come up to me, who I know well. Eric and
Yeah.
I have played together several times, and Billy Sheehan did the collab video with me for Abracadabra. So
Yeah.
met Billy several times, but never had met Paul. And I was like, is Paul here? Oh, he's always late for lobby. And I thought, well, I'm not going to be lame and just like linger down here for. They were headed out to
Yeah.
whatever they were going to go to the airport in, and but as the elevator door opened, there was Paul Gilbert, and I was like, oh. Hey man, like total fan. Of course, I'm still a fan. Like I still,
great,
no
though.
matter
Who is
how
it, right?
far into this you get,
Yeah.
you're still a fan of people. And so I'm like, hey, and he goes, have we met? And I was like, too dumb to say, I'm Joel Hoekstra. I normally play with Whitesnake. I'm here playing with Accept. I'm just, no, we've never met. I'm like, but it's great to meet you. I'm just kind of like, oh, it's Paul Gilbert, man.
He's a tall guy too.
He's a tall guy, man.
That's a tall dude.
He's a tall dude.
Did he give you a guitar pick? He seems to always gives everybody a guitar pick.
He did not. He did not give me a guitar pick. I think it was like we just spoke briefly and just said that I may have mentioned that I was like, going to play there whatever that night or the next day, and then so he just said, well, continue rocking the world, and then I think those guys had sort of gave him the backstory on who the hell I was or whatever when he got in.
Oh, dude, that's great. He is such a great guy. I only met him once, but I would never interviewed him. But there's so many covers with him on the front cover too, with Billy. It'd be great to finally get him on here because he's one of those guys too. It's like I've never met him. Very cool, but using it for Fernades sustainer, not the Sustainiac. A lot of people forgot that Fernades was doing this for so long with the
Fernades is in most of I use a lot of sustainers out here on this gig because it's a very wide deck, like the width of the arena. And so it's pointless to have an amp on stage.
Right.
And you're not in front of it. You're not even by your pedal board if you had a pedal.
That's true.
So the tech does the changing for you on the side of the stage, like any pedal presses or patch changes. And of course, once you lose like the ability to have a cabinet and be loud, you lose sustain.
Right.
And also with fractals, like you get into arenas, like you have to gate. And as soon as you gate, you lose sustain.
Right.
So it's like, all right. So I ended up with the situation. There's one instrumental with this that ends with a high F note that's held for like forever, like 20 seconds or something. And I was like, I need a Fernades sustainer. And so then I started realizing all these different points in the show where it's cool to use it.
Yeah.
Like when there'd be a chord that you'd hold and there'd be a very long break before the next section, and when the power chord would die, it was always like a little bit like,
right.
Like when you use modelers, you kind of hear a little bit of digital artifact as it dies off. You'll hear like the gate kind of fighting it, and like, and it's always like,
Yes.
Like,
Very true.
So, I always wanted the chord to ring, and then like as it keeps ringing, flip unison to the octave, so it sounds like feedback.
Right.
And then
Right.
Yeah. And so I use a lot of the Fernades sustainer. I believe they're out of business now, right?
They closed this year.
That's such a bummer.
Dude, that's that's a legendary brand for Japanese guitars,
yeah,
dude.
Brad Gillis played a Fernades guitar.
Yeah, he still got one, dude.
Yeah.
I used to do Brad's social media, and he told me, listen, I'm going to get you one of my signature model Fernades back in the day. I got it. He sent me pictures of it on a bed. He's got 4 of them. This one's getting set up by my tech. I'm going to send it out to you. I'm like, I'm a pig in shit at this point.
Yeah.
I've always wanted this guitar as a kid. I'm like, oh, it's great. COVID happens. He goes, listen, I don't think this is going to really do you any good. Why don't you just give you some dough? Do that instead. I'm like, the adult in me said, that's a better choice. But the kid in me said, fuck the money. Give me the guitar. I don't give a shit.
Well, everyone will kind of hate it, you know. But his original,
I loved it,
his
dude.
original mod that he had done, you know, the original, modded red Strat.
Yeah.
So there was some gigs where that had come out. When I joined, he was using the Fernades, and the Fernades actually, people are gonna think it's like blasphemy, sounded better. And Brad knew it when I said, so it's cool that you're playing the original one. I was like, you realize the Fernades sounds better. He's like, and he knew it.
Is that crazy, dude?
Crazy.
Those guitars are awesome, man.
They
and then
were
Jake
awesome.
Lee had a model too. It's unofficial. It was a Jake Lee signature.
Okay.
Adrian Vandenberg had one.
Oh, nice.
He had the puzzle pieces. Not a puzzle. It was like these it was like triangles in green and black on a black guitar. So there were a lot of signature Fernandes. It's just sad they're gone. You know, Dave Kushner had his the Velvet Revolver.
Okay.
That's when he had his too, his other guitar player, and it's just like, yeah, it's sad. We go into
Scorps.
this. Yeah, gotta love that.
Nice. So spent a lot of time on the road with those guys, with Whitesnake, and got to know all the Scorps, really well with Mickey D in the lineup, and they're just great guys.
Legendary band.
Love the Scorps.
I forgot I saw you guys at the Hard Rock in like 2018 when you were with Whitesnake and Red Beach was alongside of you, and you guys were like slaying it. I remember how good the merch was.
We had a great night in South America. So we did South America opening for them, or maybe it was technically a co-headline or something, but we opened essentially. And but they had at the hotel that we were at, they had a dinner with a menu that had our logos at the top, and it was just a closed off room for the 2 bands. And that was it. So
cool.
we basically, all of Whitesnake and all of the Scorpions just sat and had dinner together, and that was a real cool night. That was real fun and special for me. That's a band that they were the second concert I went to as a kid.
Wow.
So
yeah,
I grew up with the Matthias lineup because by the time I was old enough to be into.
Right, you were probably a teenager throughout the 80s, right?
So I missed out on everybody's, oh man, he's not cool because he doesn't know. I mean, I know the old Scorp stuff, but I grew up in the Matthias era.
Yeah.
And talk about an underrated player. There's an underrated player right there.
Dude, very true. Very true. Great sound of the 80s, too. That whole band. You know what I mean? Good. We're all good. Solid. Go to the next page here. Don't touch out EMG pickups. Got a little nice EMG pickup vintage ad. I like this stuff, too. Look at Crate, the old logo, with the tornado and the Crate coming through. And you got the whole Alvarez lineup back here. Have you ever played a Dana Scoop Alvarez, dude?
Maybe like hanging on like at a music store or something just to see what the hell it felt like, but never I've never.
Something tells me it wasn't very memorable for you.
No, not off. I mean, to be blunt, sorry, but
No.
I mean, not. I don't want to degrade anything, but
No.
it was never a type of thing where I saw the sense in it, I guess.
Yeah, I played one at Chicago Music Exchange. I got one used a couple years ago. I had to get my hands on it again because I've seen it in books like this, and I didn't like the tone. And then they made a Red Beach version too, which is kind of like his Ibanez.
Look at that, man, boy.
Didn't really work out.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny though. They're totally copied that off. Then you got some more string ads here. Get Sizzling Hot 1995. A lot of teaching stuff. That was very big. Very enthusiastic about this. Got some Schenker interviews. Let's see here. PRS. And I'll go over the Scorpions interview. There's one section we have to get to. You're going to freak on this because it's so good. And it's the cover story. We're almost there. It's the King, Eric Johnson, going on tour with B.B. King. So there's always respect for the blues, it seems, throughout all the decades.
Yeah.
Shred not so much at this time, but blues, yes. I like this, the JCM SLX. I actually had to look this up because I didn't know what the hell it was. A JCM 900 SLX.
I don't know either.
So the difference was where I had read is that it's basically like a JCM with an extra preamp too.
Okay.
So better gain stages and something where there's no clipping. And they're hard to find, by the way. And they're going up in value. Much more than 900 if you got JCM 900.
Okay.
And some Tascam stuff.
Look at that, yeah.
Crazy, right?
Amazing, dude. Yeah, I mean, that's back, like, when I went to GIT, that was what I spent a lot of my time doing, was, like, just being in my apartment out there, like, playing guitar and recording my instrumentals with a drum machine into my 4-track at the time, like bouncing the tracks. So you get your whatever drums and bass and find a blend between those and bounce them to track 4 and just to have enough tracks to be able to.
People today will never know what it was like unless you live back then and had to do that, right?
Proud to be a dinosaur, I guess. Hey man, whatever.
That's all
It's
good.
all good, dude.
Oh, here's your buddy.
Oh yeah, there he is, man, Gil Rock. You know,
On the 9.2 on the Rockter scale.
yeah.
SIT strings. And that was with the album he put out that time, right? Gil Rock Ranch.
Yeah.
He had the hammers.
Killer tone on that record, man, when he played that for me. And I asked him about the setup, and he said that he tracked in the control room, I believe, but they had like a cabinet on each side of him. So he was getting so much even order harmonics because the cabinets were like blowing in on the guitar. Like he's got a great. I love his guitar tone on that record.
Yeah.
Anyway, Brad is he's one of my dear friends, and I love Brad. I mean, we spent 7 years. He was my brother, and like we shared a lot. We share a lot of great memories together, man. You know.
You know what's great? I saw you guys at the freaking Epcot. I saw you at Epcot in I think 2013.
Okay.
At the Food and Wine Festival, Night Rangers playing.
Oh, right on.
And you were the one who stayed at the very end.
Yeah.
And you took pictures with everybody. I got a picture with the Panini with you.
Oh wow.
This was years before Masters of Shred was even a thought.
What a trip.
Okay, crazy,
Yeah.
right? How far we've all come. It's just all these crazy things come back. But very cool. Yeah, Brad's super great. He'll be on the cruise too, Monsters Rock Cruise.
Nice. Yeah.
So-
Night Rangers on this year.
That'd be really cool. And then, of course, you got Tony McAlpine. Never heard of that Houston Kettner though, but Attacks 100.
I'm familiar with the Hughes and Kettner stuff because of Brett Garsett and TJ Humrick were doing Hughes and Kettner. When I went to LA, I was lucky enough to know TJ Helmrich. I don't know, do you know TJ?
No.
So he's was incredibly proficient with 8-finger, like really early on, like in '91. And if you look up videos of him, their records came out. Brett Garsett was known from being in Nelson and in Australia with John Farnham, but he's like a very Alan Holdsworth-ish kind of, but with a lot of hybrid picking.
Really?
Legato, insane, four notes per string scales.
He was in Nelson?
He was with Nelson, and so Brett, at that time, TJ was amazingly enough, was my second guitar teacher. So I got really lucky in life. I was taking in a mall, and this guy was like this incredible proficient teacher. I really lucked out.
And your tapping skills were off the charts.
Well, that's from TJ. That's where the initial thing came from. He was teaching me 8-finger when I was 14. I learned the Rockin' America solo from him when I was 14, and I used to I remember vividly trying to look at the ceiling and be like, can I do it without looking down at the guitar and get the feel with my right hand? And so that's why that the 8-finger was even a thing for me, was because I had this guitar teacher who was working on it, and he was probably just wanting to practice during my lesson. Because I probably should have been working on, your timing is pretty uneven. Trying to hold these 8th notes solid, dude, but that's how it was rolling. Everybody was rolling that way back then,
That's so crazy.
So TJ and Brett, and what was amazing about that, when I went out to GIT, it was a year after TJ. He had gotten a gig as teaching there at GIT as an open counselor. And then Brett, at that time, Nelson had a #1 hit. They were on top of the charts, and TJ had made friends with him, and we were hanging out, and so I was this total nobody 19-year-old kid who'd barely played at gigs, just with my little local bands or whatever. Probably the biggest crowd I'd ever played for was probably 50 people or something,
Wow.
And I was sitting in a room playing with a guy who was and Brett and TJ were both great mentors with me, and these were parties. We would hang and party and jam all night. It wasn't let's get together to have some structured thing. It was hang, let's have some beers, let's maybe smoke some other stuff, unmentionables. And but we would just hang out and jam. And they were always, both those guys, so cool, but they were Hughes and Kettner guys.
Wow, no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow, I'll have to look up his stuff now. I had no idea.
Yeah, so the records, Quid Pro Quo and then Exempt would be the two that you'll probably be able to find. You should check them out, dude. The shred stuff's insane on those.
Wow.
If you haven't, you should definitely cover TJ and Brett on Masters of Shred at some point in time. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely, dude.
Yeah.
Some DR strings for Jackal. They were doing their thing recently at the Monsters on the Mountain Festival. Saw them. It's more Rocktron stuff. Chameleon Lizard. I don't know what the hell that even is. Okay. Okay, here we go. We're kicking in there. Gripmaster. Gripmaster was so prevalent in the 80s and 90s. It's ridiculous. I bought a Gripmaster too. I got it at FYI like 15, 20 years ago too, and he used to sell that there. And Scotty Hill had a funny thing about that. He's like, yeah, you can buy the Gripmaster or you can just practice.
Yeah, right.
You got that option too.
It's like day job guys, you know, going, I'm still going to get better, you know, I'm still going to get in the hours.
Right? It looks like he's playing a Kramer Night Swan.
Yeah.
That is a Kramer Night Swan.
Awesome.
Pretty funny. Yeah, and of course, you got Gibson, classic Aerosmith. Get a grip ad there. Killing it at the time. And here we go. Here we go. All right. So we want to get us to Shred on Arrival. This is a crazy article, cover story. Joe Satriani, is he really Shred? What he views as Shred. And the funny thing about this is a lot of this stuff, dude, is exactly what he told me on the Monsters Rock Cruise interview a year ago last year. His beliefs never changed from 93 till now. So we'll get into that. But this is funny. He sits down with the journalist here, and they sit down for lunch, and look what the journalist refers to Shred. So the journalist doesn't consider Satriani a shredder either, and tends to regard the whole Shred phenomenon as a large infected pimple on rock and roll buttocks, a blind alley deviation from rock's true path. How, dude, they really hated Shred back then. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there was a rebellion against it for sure.
Like it was crazy, man. And you know, we go into this, and it's a pretty in-depth article because Satriani just put out the Time Machine album, so it had a lot of his older stuff, maybe some new unreleased tracks. But he was talking about who he views as a shredder. And he talks about Neil Young. Neil Young is a shredder to him, playing with attitude, and you don't care about the rules or boundaries. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much what he told me on the cruise. Mm-hmm. This is 93 to 2024. Never changed.
Yeah.
So what we can gather from this too, if you didn't know already, Joe Satriani is a very honest guy.
Well, I just don't even know about like the summing up like a musician as like one thing, you know. I mean, so me graduating from GIT and having that scene, which I didn't even know what the hell I was doing. I didn't know like how I was gonna become like instrumental. I was definitely majorly into like Passion and Warfare and like, you know, things like that, and maybe had that vision for myself, but I wasn't prepared at 19 years old to like be that guy yet, or maybe 20 getting out of GIT, and I wasn't prepared at all for like how to go on an audition and land a gig. I had no concept of like, I was a suburban Chicago kid. I had no city slicker in me at all to go in and play the role or try to be that guy, and just, you know, but it's the best thing that ever happened to me because I just set off on a path of just being very open-minded and playing all types of gigs, and that made me more valuable as a musician down the road, I think, like doing things like you know, I've seen sometimes people go like, hey, like, you know, what did you do for a job before Night Ranger? Because like that's kind of when people first heard of me on the guitar scene. It was like, dude, I've been playing guitar professionally like my whole life. Like I just survived on like gigs that hadn't been in their world, you know?
Right.
Like, and it took me like
what were some of those gigs, by the way?
I mean, when I got out, I taught 70 students a week, and I started playing like with my local bands, like in the Chicago area. And then one of the successful local bands there, Kathy Richardson, who sings for Jefferson Starship these days, was a great singer, and she had great songs and a big local following. So that was kind of like my big first local break. And then once I got in her band, she was friends with Jim Peterick, who was from Survivor and the Eyes of March. So he called me in and then brought me into his house band for the world stage, it was called, where these guests would come in. And so the guests was cool as shit. I mean, we're talking like Rick Emmett from Triumph, Don Barnes from 38 Special, Kevin Cronin from REO Speedwagon, Kip Winger, Alan Parsons. So every year, like, would be a different list of people, and you'd get to play with. And one of the people every year was Kelly Keagy from Night Ranger, and that's how Night Ranger came about. Because I'd see Kelly like once a year, and I was known as this guy at that time. Jim kept me doing the gigs even though I had gone to New York to do Love Janis, the show with Kathy Richardson about Janis Joplin. She had landed this role as Janis Joplin in this theater piece.
Right.
That's what brought me to New York City. So I got in the band, and anyway, likewise at the same time, still flying back to play these gigs, the world stage gigs, and Kelly what happened is between Jeff Watson and myself, a lot of people don't remember that Reb Beach was actually the guitar player in Night Ranger for a year. In the Jeff Watson role, which I would still say out of respect to Jeff Watson.
That's something you don't see people talk about, do you?
Right, but Reb was in there for a year, and so basically what happened is Reb, at that World Stage show, I heard Jeff wasn't in the band anymore, and I was so bummed because they were always one of my favorite duos. I thought, still that they're probably the coolest '80s guitar duo that there was, just off of like identity.
Right.
Two totally different identities.
True.
And
blended
both,
so well
and
together.
both innovative in their own right.
Big time.
At what they were doing. So, and I'm friends with both of them. I love both those guys, and it was just disappointing to hear that like Jeff wasn't there. And I thought, but then Kelly's wife said, "Well, yeah, but Reb Beach is doing it." And I went, "Well, he's great, so that's cool." But later that night, I think I had a couple drinks, and I said to Kelly, I said, "You should have called me, man. You should have called me." I said I could do the 8-finger thing, and like I could have filled in. I play a gold top Les Paul, like I write for that. Like, and I said, kind of like sold myself on them, and like lo and behold, like 2 weeks later, I think Reb dropped on them like he was double booked with Winger. And so the guys at Night Ranger were having a conversation, like this casino date. Like, what do we do with this?
Right.
Like, do we just cancel it? Do we play with one guitar? And Kelly's like, Peterick's got this guy that, he gets off a plane and he knows like 35 songs and plays this whole showdown. We won't have to rehearse with this guy. He does the 8-finger thing.
Is that how it worked?
Yeah, that's exactly
You
how
didn't
it
even
worked.
have
no rehearsal
sound
with
check?
that.
Just went out there.
The sound check was very limited because Survivor, I believe, was headlined the gig. And so, oddly enough, without Jim Peterick, it was like Frankie Sullivan fronting the band more or less. And so we had a very limited sound check. I think I got to play like 2-3 songs with them or something like that. And then it was just like playing a gig.
Wow.
Like that was my audition for Night Ranger. It was like
That's incredible. Not many people could do that, dude. So they had the right idea when they called you, that's for sure. To take in those shoes, that's no joke, man.
Well, I was after it. I wanted it. I thought, this is a good fit. Like I believed that, and I still do believe I was a good fit. If you had to have somebody fill in for Jeff and not have Jeff there, that I was a good fit with those guys.
Did you? And when you went on to do Whitesnake after that, right?
I went to Whitesnake from there. Yeah.
Did you exit Night Ranger because Whitesnake approached you, or at that time
I
you had to make a choice?
I approached Whitesnake. I mean, I had been with Night Ranger for 7 years, and I was doing Rock of Ages, and had Trans-Siberian started in 2010 for me. So I had a lot happening, but Rock of Ages was looking like it was going to close, and I guess the Whitesnake thing, that whole move, I've said many times, but for me that was more about an opportunity to join Whitesnake than it was to leave Night Ranger. Like I was perfectly happy with Night Ranger and love those guys, and that was they gave me a huge break in my career by taking me from being essentially nobody to playing with their band. It was the first time people wanted a picture with me or my autograph or anything like that. So I'm eternally grateful to those guys. I tell them that every time we see each other. And, but respectfully, like having the opportunity to work with David Coverdale and Tommy Aldridge, that's also a thing.
Yeah.
And to play the Whitesnake catalog, which is like sick.
Yeah.
It's
very true, dude.
So I mean, for me, it was like more like I really want to do that more than like I want to get out of Night Ranger.
Right. That makes sense.
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
The next page here we got Shred is Dead Not. So there we go. Now we're going to learn some Eddie Van Halen Judgment Day lick, Paul Gilbert's most terrifying lick, John Petrucci's going to throw in, Kurt Hammett, and Diamond Darrell. Guess they weren't calling him Dimebag yet.
No, he was definitely Diamond in the early days.
Yeah. Right? So there we go, and that's going to be your catapult into it. They're going to show you all the tabs here. I'm going to say if you had a guitar, you can show if this is accurate or not. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you can knock that lick out. The dangerous Paul Gilbert lick does look a little frightening. What would be your thoughts on that? Does that kind of look a little bit of a stretch?
That looks a lot like the 3-note first string pentatonic-ish kind of approach that I do quite a bit of legato-wise. So my right hand is like several like eons beneath Paul Gilbert's. So like I don't have the ability to pick this stuff. I'm a left-handed person. So I think for whatever reason, and when early on, I was working a lot on 8-finger and also hybrid picking because of Brett. TJ and Brett were my mentors, and so that's what I'm better at with my right hand than alternate picking and shredding like that. So my strengths kind of came from my mentors, And it's good that I can do certain things with my right hand that maybe others can't. And, you know, it would be nice to be an incredible alternate picker and have like a wicked right hand. I just don't, you know.
Let me ask you something. Did DJ and Brett play Ibanez's 7 strings?
No.
Okay.
No,
I'm confusing them with somebody else.
Steinbergers.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
That's why I play. In fact, you'll see me play the Steinbergers
Oh, really?
tonight. That's like my tribute to TJ. That's
Really?
why it's in the show.
Oh, shit, that's awesome,
Yeah.
dude. That's awesome. Be a little bit more into this, more shred, just show people that shred's alive here. And when it gets to Les Paul, I always wonder who won this stuff. But there's also something in here. You're going to count more Eric Johnson stuff, some Roland stuff. I never heard of that. Oh, Tech 21 I've heard of, but I don't know about the Samsung. And we go more on the shred stuff here. You don't consider Hendrix a shredder? Personally, no. Hendrix was a great psychedelic guitar player. I don't think so. I think Hendrix could totally shred. So I think they're wrong. And that's Guitar World.
I mean, I just labels are labels,
I know.
man.
It's
You
just
know?
funny how they're trying to like tiptoe this line into the sand.
I
at that
personally
time.
don't like, I still don't like, just because it was derogatory in the 90s, just being labeled a shredder. Like, I just consider myself a guitar player.
Well, knowing that term came out of hostility, I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
changes things. I didn't know that. That was not a term in the 80s.
But like, you know, so when, like this year, for instance, when I went in with Accept, you know, Wolf, who will be at the show tonight, by the way, Wolf Hoffman's coming to the show tonight. You know, he's the primary guitarist. A lot of people were like, oh, well, you know, this and that. I was like, I don't need like hello, like if you checked out the Cher gig, what do you think I was shredding like throughout the entire Cher gig?
Right.
It's a rhythm guitar gig.
Right.
Like, and so I was like way into like just hopping in and like playing like heavy metal rhythms with those guys this year
Right.
and getting out and playing the big festivals and all that stuff. I had a great time with them doing that. And Wolf was trying to, you know, why don't you take this solo? And I was like, dude, that's where we're gonna get hurt. Because then people, the diehard fans would be like, the Whitesnake guy came in and ruined the whole thing and wanked all over the gig. And I said, like, I want this to be like, I come in to Accept and like, where it'll, like, the ultimate compliment I told Wolf the entire time was like that he fit right in. And that's always my goal with these things,
Right.
you know, like so as a musician, when you're a side guy like that, that's the goal.
Right.
And, you know, same with Trans-Siberian. It's like, you know, when I work with Trans-Siberian, it's to fit in with everybody. It's to make the other people happy. You know, I do get my opportunity to be an artist and release Joel Hoekstra's 13 albums.
Right.
I'm not a successful, I try to explain to people that I'm not a successful recording artist, and that if I had to pay my bills off of that, I would have had to fold up shop many, many, many years ago. Probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to even do those records. I've been successful as a guitarist, and it took a really long time for that to happen, but I've been able to have a lot of great gigs as a guitarist, I'm just not successful as a solo artist. And all these things I think are very important to identify and have respect and hold respect for people that have done it, because your life changes. Like if you're a content creator, you could spend 10 hours a day working on just your chops. If you're on tour, man, you're like on a flight to a bus to a shuttle and no sleep and pushed on stage, and you're not in, you know.
Right.
So you know, we all survive, and whatever your musical path is and wherever that takes you, that's, you know, you like, my thing is to just try my best at every turn. Sometimes that's to play with some chops, and sometimes it's not. But like, I just, at the end of the day, like guitar player feels better to me than like shredder still.
Yeah.
Although it's a compliment, and
Yeah.
you know, I get it. Like, you know, but
Right, I get it, dude. I get it. That makes sense. We got some more Billy Sheehan stuff with Paul Gilbert, DiMarzio, side by side. I always like these sneakers back then. I'm getting really big into the old school sneakers. I can't stop. Oh,
yeah,
I'm trying
highly
to find,
visible high tops, man.
Dude, they're
Yeah.
so great.
It's very 90s.
I don't have to show these off when I have to.
Yeah.
Yes, these are
There you go.
AXL ROSE.
Oh, dude, get the
Yes,
fuck out.
yes. You guys all remember that shit? That's right. I've been wanting these shoes my entire life as a small child, because I saw Axl wear them the Use Your Illusion tour.
Right on.
Great people out of Argentina are making them handmade.
Right
Best
on.
sneakers ever owned. Light as a feather, so comfortable. All right, here we go. Warmoth DoD Grunge. I had this. I think it was a great pedal. The Grunge pedal kicked ass. A lot of those metal. This is where I want to go. Okay, Solo Flight. All this great stuff. They're going to go pinpoint the exact moment in time when shredding became disreputable, right? Disreputable. Okay. All right. Sometimes believe it was right after Steve Vai sold his soul to Whitesnake for an alleged cool million. Look at the way they write this. Sold his soul like it wasn't a good thing when he was with them and their albums. Anyway, others argue it was during Yngwie's 4th album or was it his 5th? Gee, was there a difference? Oh my gosh, Guitar World, this is brutal. I mean, they are cracking the hammer on everybody that they worship today, which is pretty funny. How the tides change over time. Now it's cool. But they go over this, showing it, yada yada. We get to this. The Shred Hall of Shame. Okay, now this is where it gets nutty, folks. All right, tell me your view on this. Whitesnake, number 1. Slip of the tongue, an utter disappointment to those who believe Steve Vai was actually an artist. Thank the Lord for Passion and Warfare, which was recorded a year later. Dude, Slip of the Tongue kicked ass. I am so confused on this. Wow, dude.
I mean, I have a hard time hearing anybody say anything derogatory about somebody like Steve Vai, because I mean, Steve Vai is like somebody who I know really well virtually. Jeff Watson from Night Ranger fame has an email thread that I'm a part of, and I've gotten to know Steve on there and really know a lot about his story and his time, like back at Berkeley, and like, you know, just how he wanted to become the best sight reader in the world. And I just think, you know, all these things, all the Zappa transcriptions to joining, and then the stories of how much he needed to practice to be in Zappa's band, and having to fill in for Yngwie, who was a legend on very little notice in Alcatraz, and like unbelievable. And how about having to step in and play with David Lee Roth when parting ways with Eddie Van Halen? And I mean, to me, these are like people that you just, no matter what, you like. Sorry, man, you need to hold these people in high regard. Like,
Thank you.
Yeah. Like,
so to see that, dude, that was.
I have a hard time like just hearing anything derogatory about people who have like achieved that much and have that much skill.
It's true.
It's like.
And you see who number 2 is?
Yngwie Malmsteen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Never has such a gifted guitarist betrayed his promise so thoroughly on the Fire and Ice album. This is just like. It was a time, I guess.
Again,
right?
I have a hard time.
It's fun to hate on this stuff.
I have a hard time with all of that. Anybody that's Yngwie broke, he changed the guitar scene. You know, when we were younger and he came out, and I just have a hard time. I don't know, why disrespect that? Man?
Sure.
You know, I mean, it's like, come on, really?
And also Poison, which CC Deville is getting a lot of hate. It seems like for a long time. Now he does, but I see the greatness in CC Deville. I love his stuff. And then it goes Maestro Alex Gregory, and then Nitro. And again, just the way they talk, a band that was foolish enough to believe that speed would cover up the fact that they have absolutely nothing to say. Whoa, this is intense. This is an intense article. I don't know if this issue would even inspire anybody to want to play guitar. I mean, just the way they talk about it. It's like, this is, okay, so I'm going to go sell my guitar, or use it, throw it in the wood chipper, turn it into a coffee table. It was a crazy time where you didn't want to be a shredder, apparently. What's funny about Nitro, I tell my brother this. Do you know where I heard their song, a Nitro song recently? Do you remember that Hulk Hogan movie called Urban Commando?
No.
It was a complete blender. It was horrible. I mean, it's funny when you watch back. I actually kind of enjoyed it. I think we kind of enjoyed it. It was just, it's so at the time. But there was teenagers that were in a Camaro that you never saw the inside of the car, and they would just race through the suburban neighborhood running over kids. And they were classic Nitro. That's how I remember Nitro music. Anyway, to get out of that. But, you know, they go over some other stuff here, too. Smashing Pumpkins, Alice in Chains, and Cantrell plays a Music Man, Edward Van Halen, so you know who their primary influences are. So kind of, where's it going now, you know? Look at this. No More Tears. So what is this toll? The modern age. No More Tears. Traditional, no-frills, heavy metal thunder, courtesy of the gloriously obnoxious Zakk Wylde. Dude, this is so heavy. Like, what was Guitar World thinking? This did not age well. I'm probably going to get blacklisted just by covering this issue. I find it entertaining, but damn, it was not paying to do this stuff back then, it seems. But I love No More Tears. One of the best Ozzy albums, my favorite, hands down. So to see that, it's like, you got to be kidding me. Anyway, okay, let's go to this stuff. TubeWorks, I haven't heard of that amp company. Clearly, I don't think they're around anymore. But you see a lot of that kind of stuff.
There is the prototypical grunge outfit right there.
Yeah.
The flannel, the jeans, and the boots. By the way, that's it.
Perfect.
That's it.
Yeah. It sums it up. Never heard of that guitar brand. You never find
No.
one of them used anywhere. And apparently it was on Randy Jackson's China Rain album.
Oh, okay.
So that's where you can hear the guitar. Apparently never adjusted or got out of...
Tension-free necks. Wow.
yeah, wild stuff, dude. Of the time. More teaching. Hot Licks. Gotta love Hot Licks
Hot
videos,
Licks,
dude.
absolutely.
We didn't have those.
The Steve Lukather one was big for me.
Right?
Yeah.
I think we posted a video of the intro of one of those. He was just ripping, dude.
Just ripping. And, you know, so the Steve Lukather thing, one thing that did for me was that there's times where he's bending with his pinky. And up till then, I would always been like, you know, kind of this guy in the pentatonic box. And I was like, wait a minute, he's bending with his pinky. I better get my shit together. So, like, and now forever when I have students ask, well, I mean, do I bend with my pinky or do I bend with my third finger? And I'm like, both. You've got to be able to do both. Like, I'm like,
Steve Lukather.
Seeing Steve Lukather doing that was an eye opener. I went, oh wow, like, you know, I guess you can do that. I was the guy, you know, always using the third finger.
That's freaking awesome, dude. And then you got this little great Mesa Boogie ad.
Yeah.
Again, dropping the motor in. And you got what looks like a 930 turbo or 911 turbo back there. Could be a slant nose, who knows. Sitting back there and it says Yank 3. So I'm sure that's somebody's car that probably worked with Mesa Boogie. Possibly. Oh, here we go. Extremes in the house right here where they're Washburn
Nice.
Slicks. Talk about a guy who never left his brand.
Yeah.
Stayed there all that time. Still, the only electric guitar they make is now Nuno's.
Nice.
Crazy, right? Yeah, and they're great guitars. We just went to their workshop, their custom shop. Great stuff. Whirlwind cables are still around. They actually gave away 1986. They had a giveaway where they were going to give you away a Porsche 944, like the one from 16 Candles,
Okay.
with a cable. That was the idea.
a cable.
They were going to announce the winner at NAMM '87.
Beautiful.
Again, I wonder who won that.
Zoom driver. So
Remember
Zoom,
those?
Zoom going more stomp box, huh? Okay.
I remember when Zoom made amps. All these crazy effects in them.
Yeah.
Zoom Fires, I think they were called. Early 2000s. I think they're still around, right? Zoom's still
Yeah.
killing it. Zion are very expensive. You ever heard of Zion guitars?
No.
Dude, high-end shredder kind of guitars. Very expensive. I think they're still around, but dude, they're not cheap. You
Yeah.
find a vintage one, they're up there. I got some Sam Ash love. Can you believe Sam Ash clothes? We live in a world where we don't have a Sam Ash anymore.
Yeah.
Insane, dude.
I know. Yeah.
You being from
Yeah,
being in the New
New
York
York,
area,
yeah.
you knew how big that one
Yeah.
was.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. ADA. Gotta love these.
Yeah.
It's the MP2,
Okay. Yeah.
which people say is not as good as the MP1.
Yeah, the MP1 was a thing. I mean, every time you'd hear somebody play through one of those, it was like cool tone.
Really? Did you ever have one?
Great tone. No, I never did. I had a kind of a horrible gear situation when I was younger. I made a lot of really, really bad choices. I mean, it was like, I think initially, like my first band, I was using like a Gallion Kruger head, and then I started using like a Roland GP8 for like distortion with it. And like, no, I didn't have anybody to guide me on these things, man, you know? So
Right.
I had like, you know, and so a lot of it was like straight into the Roland GP8 and then into the Gallion Kruger and the 250 MLs that had the two little speakers on
Right.
it. And that was like in like a Fender cabinet or something like that.
People were experimenting.
It was, so it took me a while. And then I had a Boogie Studio preamp, and I had a Boogie Mark IV, and I'm trying to think when things kind of eventually. I remember getting a Marshall like 2000 at some point in time.
That's
you
what I
know,
believe Nuno is using today. Got that one of those. JCM 2000, or do you call it DSL? One of those, but he said they got
Yeah.
one. It just sounded so good. He said, I'm going to keep this and take it on the road. Took it on the road. And they said the tone's just like killer.
I mean, that's still my go-to, like when I play the 80s music with like Broadway's Rock of Ages band, which is not the show anymore, but it's that band, and we go just play a cover gig for fun, basically, and sometimes corporate type things, and so you play the full-length versions of the songs.
Right.
And for me, it's fun. I go as myself. I get introduced as being from these bands,
Yeah.
etc., and seeing my old friends. We worked together for 6 years, so
Oh, that's awesome.
on that show. So anyway. Yeah, I don't know. I've been through an awful lot of things with tone over the years. Friedman, most recently with amps. EVH was a big thing for a long time with the Night Ranger. We were using
Really?
EVH amps.
Such great high gain amps.
Yeah, Mark Slaughter turned me onto those when I did scrap metal gigs with. So there was a project, probably still exists, but the Nelson twins, based out of Nashville here. So Mark Slaughter. And Kelly Kagi from Night Ranger. And they were the core band, and then they would have guest singers, and they always needed a guest guitar player, like one more guitar player who would
Really?
kind of learn a lot of the leads and stuff like that. So I I started jamming with Kelly. I think it was kind of where Kelly was auditioning me in a way for Night Ranger.
Yeah.
Like I started doing some scrap metal gigs, and those were working out and going well.
Wow, I didn't know about
So-
that. I gotta check that out.
Yeah.
Scrap metal, Nelson and Slaughter in there. Got a little poster. Oh, we'll pull it out. There you go. All right, BB King's custom Lucille.
Beautiful.
And you got Joe Satriani silhouette on the back.
Beautiful.
Not a very exciting Joe Satriani poster though. Gonna get a little crazier with that. Let's see though. Sound Connection 10-year anniversary. Gotta love these videos. This is a little passe at the moment though. I don't know. A lot of acoustics here. Charvel taking a stab at it at that time.
Yeah.
Kind of unique. Never really come across those too much.
No, I don't think I ever played one.
Right? That's a little wild. RPM stuff. More of that little crazy stuff here. TC Electronics, live concert dates for us if you want to know. Find out where your favorite stars are performing. You got to call that number. They'll tell you the dates.
Amazing.
Isn't that crazy? What a time. Shadow stuff I heard those were terrible. Not very good. I had to try the
Most
Shadow.
of those sound hole pickups are a little rough. Yeah.
Yeah, not that good. Oh, this might be a little better. Let's see more Duncan in there. They tried it. Got some more Gibson stuff here. Project Lost for Words. 3.5 stars, Guitar World Magazine. I don't even know who that is. Project 7. Everyone's trying to get in on this thing, man. You got all these ads everywhere. I always tell people this. Every inch was utilized, and it
Yeah.
was sold. People were paying money to get in this stuff,
yeah.
man.
Absolutely.
48th Street prices, Stairway to Heaven. It's just there's a lot to take in. But I'm sure, like around this time, you're going through this stuff, probably lighting up because all this incredible stuff every month, crazy stories. Set the world on fire. I don't know what the hell is it, Troy Setting. I think. Oh my gosh, dude, I think I have one of his series.
It's
I
instructional.
remember the guitar. I have it.
Series?
I bought it.
Okay.
It came with a red cassette tape.
Okay.
I never opened it just because I leave it on the coffee table. It looks cool. I'm like, this is great. I think I got it for $1 at a vintage store. 2 Screamers.
Nice.
$300 back then too. That was a steal. Yeah. Even back then they had their following. This I gotta check out more so. Hosono Guitar Works. That's in Glendale, California. I think I've heard a bunch of people going there.
Oh, cool.
So kind of like performance guitars in a
yeah.
way.
Not familiar with them.
Yeah, Rock and Rhyme Fighters. A lot of crazy stuff here. Tone to Burn, the hottest bands in town. Hip Shot stuff. Thoroughbred Music. Actually, I just found out this. Purchased Dean Guitars in Tampa.
Oh, wow.
So they're not around, but Dean is
Okay.
clearly. So that's where that went to. I love these. These were going into the 2000s. These things.
What
when
is
you
this,
wanted,
T-shirts?
Yeah, when you wanted your stuff.
Oh
It's
my
the
God,
same company. They're still there.
That's amazing.
Rockabilia. That's how you order your
Okay.
shirts.
That's amazing.
Those shirts
Okay.
are great. All over prints. I'm sure those are worth a fortune today. Vintage clothing is off the charts for these bands. I actually just got a bunch of vintage clothing from someone who used to do lights for Whitesnake, David Lee Roth, Van Halen, and Milli Vanilli.
Wow.
So I have a Whitesnake 88. I was going to wear it today, sweater.
Oh, dude.
Crew sweater, all crew
Right on.
stuff. And he did it for Rat.
Wow.
I feel, yeah, it's pretty incredible. I was pretty lucky. JR1 guitars, synthesizers. This is where you get your new equipment. I don't know who the hell that is. That guitar. Oh, Zion again, right? And they always got to have this Mike Varney's Hometown Heroes.
Mike Varney's Hometown. So that was.
Anybody here look familiar to you?
So when he switched over to Guitar World, it went from Spotlight to Hometown Heroes. Is that the deal?
Yeah, this is Guitar World. So it was Guitar Player was Spotlight.
Spotlight. Yeah.
And
Yeah, that was everything to be in Spotlight back then.
So were you ever spotlighted?
No.
Did you ever send in anything to be spotlighted?
I don't know if I did.
Okay.
So there's probably a good reason I never made it.
Okay.
I guess I don't know. Maybe I did. I honestly couldn't answer that.
No?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll go with no on that one. Then here we go. Vigier, which
Yeah.
they made Sean Lane's guitars afterwards. They're a great player. Trading Licks. And then we go to the tablature, No Rain, that kind of stuff. And you see how deep these magazines were back then, dude.
Yeah,
They were
print,
deep.
Print was king.
Oh my gosh, I love all this stuff. Oh, what's this? You can get replica Swiss watches in a guitar magazine. See that? They're advertising that.
Wow, that's so out there, man.
So weird. I wanted to see that watch company and said, you know where we got to get advertising in? Guitar World magazine. That's where we're going to really blow up. Maybe because Yngwie was rocking Rolexes
Right.
at that time. Like, when you get Rolexes, Yngwie's got the Rolex.
Yeah, Yngwie with the Rolex.
So,
yeah, exactly.
it's a lot more expensive than a strap. We get the strap, we got to get the Rolex now. So, crazy stuff like that, dude.
Yeah, there's David Coverdale. You can't flip past DC. Man.
Oh, there
DC
it
and
is that.
Jimmy Page, man.
Look at that.
And look at that, Kotzen and Steve
Yep.
Stevens, man.
See that? Guitar School. I have that. I have 2 of those.
Wow. Look at that.
Yep. You get all those. Oh, I'm almost tempted to go choose the other crazy ads because they're so nuts. Yeah, it was a crazy time. You got Musician's Friend. This is early. This is early, dude.
Yeah, Musician's Friend.
Wow. That is so wild.
I believe this today at some point in time, I'm not sure why, but they became known as Musician's Fiend. There was that was like the dig on them, and I don't remember why, but I remember that being a thing. It like triggers in my head.
It's a pretty good name. And then we go all the way to the back, and we're still talking about Satriani probably defending the term shredder and you know how to click.
Well,
it was
he's
such
coming
a
out selling
big thing.
platinum records and having the culture change was probably like, is this gonna survive? Should it survive? You know, the validity of it. You know what's funny is that it seems like the you can see clearly like Metallica, like the Black Album and Pantera and stuff like that. There was no bagging on the shredding when it was happening in really, really heavy stuff.
Right.
That was like
That's
perfectly
true.
acceptable.
Pantera.
Yeah,
There's tons of shred in Pantera.
Right, and they're praising Diamond Daryl in the magazine. So it's more or less like, I guess more steered at like, you know, mainstream rock and roll. Like, let's go ahead and push a lot of that fast playing off into the heavy stuff, and like, we're okay with that.
Yeah,
like,
as long as you got the heavy. Yeah, that makes sense, dude. We got some Carvin ads here. Vito Bratta on the Carvin ad, 93.
Nice.
93,
Awesome.
I think our last show was in 92.
Yeah.
With the White Lion, so.
Chet Atkins.
Yeah, all those mail away catalogs, all that kind of good stuff.
Craig Jaquiso.
Yeah. And then, boom, Diamond Dave.
Boom.
And that, folks, is the issue with the mighty Joel Hoekstra. We went through the whole thing. Is Shred dead? What do you think about that? Would you say Shred's dead? Maybe in 93,
Dude,
semi.
on just, you know, for me, it's just a term.
If you go by the journalist of this magazine, it was long overdue, 6 feet under already. But I think we all know better. So I gotta thank you for coming out here and doing this, and we gotta plug what you're doing. You're touring right now with Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and if you guys have not seen a Trans-Siberian Orchestra show, you have no idea what you're missing. I can't even say it's an experience because it's more than that. It's life-changing. So you may want to make it a part of your yearly Christmas festivity schedule is attending a Trans-Siberian Orchestra show. So definitely check that out. Where can everybody follow you at, Joel?
I mean, you can hit all my socials by going to I'm one of these guys that still has a .com lurking out there. But if you go to joelhoekstra.com, JoelHoekstra.com, Kip Winger said I had the worst name in rock.
I think you told me that before, right?
That was the quote to Reb when he learned I got the Whitesnake thing. That guy's got the worst name in rock. So
it took you
it is
places,
difficult. There's a lot of letters. So JoelHoekstra.com, JoelHoekstra.com, and you can hit any of my social media stuff. I do all of it except TikTok. I haven't gotten on there yet. I'm probably behind. Do you do TikTok?
We're on there. We don't keep it current. Instagram and YouTube is really our thing, and Facebook. TikTok, I've been dodging having to conform to it, honestly. It's a whole other monster.
So I learned something from one of the girls in the band here who's very successful online. She kind of just blew up and went to like 1 million followers on IG by singing in her kitchen. And one thing that she told me, so I'll give away the secret, but she said it's really important that you do that because those companies are rivals. So they feed off each other and they want to like beat each other. So when you push your content on Instagram, this is not important enough for me. I basically, look, I'm a dinosaur, dude. I post like the pictures, or like a picture of me on stage and like, here's what gig I'm doing. That's all I do on social media. I don't get involved in like, let's talk about the world and like, you know, what do I know? What does anybody know? Almost everybody on there knows absolutely nothing about it, really.
Right.
So like, I just like post a picture of the gig, and that's why I'm so behind, because I know it should be reels and it should be like,
This
I
content creator
should do
stuff.
much better with content creation than I do. But I do great with touring. With respect to me, that has nothing to do with not hard work. Like I work hard with guitar every day. Like I said, that's why it's like you got to show people respect with whatever path it is they're taking. But
Wow.
like I said, respectfully, man, everybody that's out there like fighting the fight and like going after it, like props to everybody that's doing that, because it's hard.
It is.
And this is no joyride. It's a hard way to make a living, and people work really hard, and I think it's heartbreaking that we critique each other so much.
Right.
And, it's
I
like,
agree.
it's
I
like
agree.
A little bit more time for an era of like mutual support on all fronts.
Very well said. Very well said. Well, Again, thank you for doing this, guys. If you don't already now, subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button, like it, drop a comment, tell your friends, share the video. We got more Pages in Time coming. Follow us on Masters of Shred on Instagram and Mr. Shred Official. Check out our brand new Tone Arts USA Super Halen amp. As you know, it's limited to just 50 units, a must-have for your shred den like no other, and it sounds incredible. Take my word for it, you'll be blown away, and check out all the awesome reviews. You can find that at mastersofshred.com, Super Halen, and of course, our good folks at Tone Arts USA. Follow them on Instagram. You will not regret it. Thank you guys again for watching, and we'll see you again on their episode of Pages in Time.